CNN, Sanjay Gupta, is here to field some of those questions that were tweeted to us at CNN using the hashtag Ebola Q&A. I also took some questions from my Facebook page. So Sanjay, here's the first one. This from Alan. He tweeted, there have been rumors going around that Ebola has mutated to an airborne disease. What's true and what's not?
Well, the viruses do constantly change a bit, and this is something they've been monitoring as well with Ebola, just like they do with the flu every year. That's why we get a different flu shot, by the way, every year. But there's no evidence that Ebola has mutated to an airborne disease. That we should just dispel with that rumor. That is not true. This is not a virus that spreads through the air, and I think that's a really important point to make, and part of the reason this is not considered a highly contagious disease. There's a lot of fear around it, obviously, but being airborne is not one of them.
Okay, this question is from Chelsea. She tweeted, why isn't the Ebola containment working?
Well, you know, it's an interesting question. So when you talk about West Africa, I assume her question is more about West Africa. Why have the numbers just continued to increase? Part of the problem is that, you know, if someone gets sick, during the time that they're sick but not yet in the hospital, they can come in contact with lots of people. They need to go back and trace those people. It's called contact tracing. If you miss the contacts and one of those people gets sick, then you can start to have a whole nother group of people who could potentially become infected. I think at the beginning of what was happening here in West Africa in March, some of that contact tracing just wasn't very good. There were a lot of people who got missed, and as a result, all of a sudden you had 3 separate countries that had sort of simultaneous outbreaks. That's what happened. If you implement good practices with regard to containment, find all those contacts, it should work.
Okay, here's another question from Vicky. With the upcoming flu season, how much do symptoms of Ebola mimic different strands of the flu?
They can be quite similar, and that can be confusing. And keep in mind, people come back with fevers and cough. It can be all sorts of different things. Here's the big critical difference with Ebola. A travel history and a history of any particular risks is absolutely crucial. This particular gentleman that we're talking about in Dallas, for example, we're now learning, as you well know, Carol, that the patient went into the hospital on the 26th, the first time, went to the hospital himself or herself, but was not asked about travel history. That's a miss. So for 2 extra days, then the person's out there possibly having contact with more people. That's a real concern. Ebola is going to be different from flu as part of the history. If someone has all these symptoms and also just returned from Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, one of those countries, that raises the level of concern.
Okay, this is a question from Daniel. He says, what if an infected and sick person, say, sneezes into his hand, then grabs a handrail on a bus or a subway, and 5 minutes later someone else grabs the same handrail and then rubs his eyes? Is Ebola likely to be transmitted that way?
It is possible to be transmitted that way, but not likely to be transmitted that way. Couple of reasons. First of all, Ebola can live outside the body on surfaces. I think that's part of this question. It can do that. If it's exposed to sunlight, obviously, if the handrails are cleaned or something like that, that would deactivate the virus. But let's say those things don't happen, the virus can live there even for several days. But you don't typically, while Ebola can live in all sorts of different bodily fluids, it's less likely to be transmitted through coughs or sneezes or the sort of the situation that Daniel sort of described, much more likely to be transmitted through blood. Also keep in mind, at the time that someone is actually excreting the virus from their bodies, they're really sick typically. They're typically not up on a subway. They're not up and about coming in contact with lots of people. That makes it less likely as well, Carol.